Shalom, family. So yeah, doing some reading. Michael Rourke, his brother put together something real nice. So he wrote something about the American Empire. American Empire loose. All right. So it says, Calalus, another ancient Jewish colony in America. Prepared November the 21st, 2019. I'm hungry. Get a sandwich or something. I can't go down there. He's not gonna let me. Alright, so tell Marlos to let you make a sandwich or make your sandwich, please. I don't want to talk to him. Huh? You don't want to tell him? You said what? Yeah, I don't want to tell him. You're gonna say no. Alright, I'll do it. Just give me a second. Wait a minute. Alright, wait a minute. Calalus, the little ones, man. You already know. Another ancient Jewish colony in America. Was prepared in Colorado Knowledge, USA World. All right. In the 1920s in Tucson, Arizona, were found objects and writings in Latin, Greek, and Hebrew, with both Catholic and Jewish ritual objects and symbols. Cyclone Covey describes this discovery in his book Calalus, a Roman Jewish colony in America, from the time of Charlemagne through Alfred the Great. Covey and other researchers are amazed at the mixture of Jewish, Christian, and Kabbalistic objects and symbols. However, this very much fits the period of the 8th century, when in the Carolingian Empire there is a Jewish principality in southern France called Septimania.
I don't know if my son is on this one because
Oh yeah. Okay, so you know. Hold on. Wait a minute. What's this? Is this a 9? That's a 4. How's that for what? That's not right.
Oh, because I count the 9. And this one I count.
No, do your own, because I might have them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. No, it's 9 times 2. Not 6.
Oh.
Yeah. So you do it. Don't. How'd you come up with that? That's multiplication. You gotta do it like this, remember? So, just no. Take your time. You take your time and really sit in there and do it, please, sir. Thank you. All right. Okay, where we at? Homework. However, this very much fits this period in the 8th century with the Carolingian Empire. There is a Jewish principality in southern France called Septimania, ruled by Theodoric of Narbonne, Makir, Tidros, Ben Judah, Magnero, Amer, born 710, died 765. Many members of his royal family descended from the exilarchs of Babylon, embraced a Jewish form of Catholicism, while other members remained outwardly Orthodox Jews. Calalus artifacts from Tucson. So if you guys don't know too much about these artifacts they found, I got it up here. Which one? Put that up there. For those who don't know about the artifacts, type it in. Type it in. So these are the artifacts that they found in Arizona, pretty much. It ties it to my people. Yeah. In Arizona, they found them. Here's more. So let's read. Calalus artifacts from Tucson. The Calalus artifacts speak of Theodorus as the leader of many peoples who leave the Roman lands of Calalus in 775 AD. Covey and other believes that Theodorus is a Jewish leader in the city of Rome. Wait a minute. I can't find it. Alright, okay. Theodorus is none other than the Jewish king of Septimania, a Roman Jewish state in southern France. He is the son of the first Jewish king of Septimania, also called Theodoric Thierry, Amari de Narbonne, Makia Tudros, Theodorus Dietrich, Theodoric, Amari, Chetif, Nehemiah, Naaman, Amir bin Ahmad is also known as Theodoric, king of Saxony, and as Namos, Duke of Bavaria. He and his brothers were great warrior Davidic princes of the time of Charlemagne. Professor Arthur Zuckerman, in his book A Jewish Princedom in Feudal France, confuses him with his father, who bears the same Frankish names as Theodore and Amiri. On the death of his father, Makia Theodoric is about 765 AD. Nehemiah Theodoric becomes the Western Exarch and leader of the Jews of the revived Western Roman Empire of Charlemagne. I'm recording. I'm doing a video. I'm trying to get this done without stopping every 6 minutes. If you was watching a video of one of your video games that you really like to look at, if the guy was stopping every 5 minutes to do something, wouldn't you be like, why he keep stopping? Wouldn't you? Alright, so I'm just saying. Alright, good. You good? You good? Alright, so help him, man, please. Let me get this done. Thanks. All right. In 775 AD, Nehemiah Theodoric reconquered the American Empire of Calalus. Calalus was ruled by Sylvanus Texas, Solomon the Builder, the hereditary ruler of this former Jewish-ruled Roman colony. Calalus was founded in the 1st century BC by the Babylonian exile known as Sylvanus Algam or Sylvanus Bravo, Solomon II, Babylonian exile, Nasi of Mara, Nasi of Mara. Ruler of Sumer, Somerset in Britain, a great Roman Jewish ruler, soldier, and ancestor of the Swan Knights. Barahakazim. He also had a fleet of trading vessels known as the ships of Solomon or the swan boats. The ships were shaped like a swan, with its sails like the wings of a beautiful gliding white swan. After the defeat of Sylvanus Texas, the members of the royal family were sent back to Europe. Where they were under protection of Nehemiah Theodorus and his family. The legends of Don and Ogier are based on activities of this family descended from Diwan, Antigon, Ogier, the Sylvanus Bravo, Solomon Barber. The legends of Ogier, the Dane. The legends of Ogier, the Dane, son of Godfried, Cadrod, and Dun Demayance, and Dun Demayance, actually referred to the Tuatha de Danann or Dunan, who are also known as the Mananin or Maine of America, where the giant ogre heads of the Olmec are found. The Irish legend of Regamon also allude to this family. The Jews of this ancient Roman Jewish kingdom of Rhoda were also known as the Rhodans or Rhodanites, and were great Jewish merchants who controlled the ancient trade routes. The Rhone Valley and river were named after these Jewish Rhodanites, merchants, who used the Rhone Valley as a base for their trading empire. Many of them settled in Ireland in the 1st centuries AD, uniting with their cousins descended from Saint Joseph of Arimathea, Isaac Colonimus, the son of Nehemiah Theodoric of Reporian. Nehemiah Theodoret. Oh, Riparian. 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 Purarian. Riparian. Pure. Is that where the RIP comes from? What is this all about? Okay. Difference between me and you and everybody else is I ain't afraid to die. I already know what's coming. Just gonna make sure I'm right before I go. So you don't understand where I'm coming from, that's your problem. So these are the artifacts, right? You know about the artifacts. So was also known as Isaac the Rhodanite. You know what? I want to see something real quick on this. Imperial Franks. Slow.
Riparian Franks were one of the two main groupings of early Frankish people mentioned by a number of 6th century sources. The Ripuarii lived on the Rhine in what is today northern Germany, and they crossed the Rhine as they grew in power. The other main group of Franks were the Sauli, or Salian Franks, who lived to the west of the Ripuarii in what is today the Netherlands and Belgium, crossing the Rhine into the area of the modern Belgian and Dutch provinces of Limburg. The division of the Franks into Ripuarians and Salians would have taken place in the later Roman Empire. By the time the Ripuarians are mentioned in the historical record, they had already lost their independence to the expanding power of the Merovingians. But they seem to have kept a separate identity within the Frankish Empire until at least the 7th century, when their traditional laws were recorded as the Lex Ripuaria. Name. The name Ripuarii clearly has a meaning of river people, but the exact origin of the name is unclear. The regular Latin form would be Riparii, meaning men of the river bank. The Ripuarian Franks are so called by Jordanus. Other attested forms of the adjective are riparenses and riparienses. The form ripuarii is irregular, however, and has been explained by a hypothetical native name underlying the Latin. This hypothetical self-designation might be restored as either *HREOP Warren, *HREPA Warren, river bank people, or *HREOP Warren, *HREPA Warren, river bank defenders. Conversely, the form ripuarii may also be due to a loan of the Latin riparii into Germanic. This view is based on a word pair given in the Summarium Heinrici, an 11th century revision of Isidore of Seville, stating the Old High German equivalents of some Latin words, including ripuarii, rifra. The latter is textually reconstructed to *ripfera, except that, phonetically *rip cannot come from rip. A third possibility is that the name ripuarii was a mixed word to begin with, perhaps *rip or yos. It seems to be analogous to the later formation, riburius, in which Gallo-Roman *riba replaces Roman ripa. From the Gallo-Roman came the French rive bank, and a group of words based on it. History. The Confederacy of the Franks had come into being by the 3rd century on the right bank of the Rhine. Tribes who had lived in the same area in Roman times included the Sicambri, Chamavi, Brucheri, Chatrurii, and Tencteri. The Franks replaced those older tribes in the record and most probably represent a new alliance of all or some of them. These independent Franks crossed the Rhine frequently to establish bases there from which they raided further into the Roman Empire. The Romans eventually bought peace by exchanging freedom to settle on the left bank for cooperation in maintaining the peace. Many of these Franks rose to high office in the empire. In the area of the ripuarii, the Rhine had been defined as a border of the Roman Empire under the early emperors. The Romans created two provinces, Upper and Lower Germany. The dividing line was marked and maintained by a major base at Mainz. Lower Germany, which faced the ripuarii, later became Germania Secunda. Roman cities in this region included Castra Vetera, Cologne, and Bonn. The Ubii had been the main Germanic people within Lower Germany since early Roman imperial times. They had been allowed to move from the other side of the Rhine. Colonia Agrippinensis was placed among them as Roman colony to assist them keep the gate against intruders, while the Ubii had moved under pressure from the Suebi to their east. Other related tribes under similar pressure from more distant neighbors had moved in to replace them on the right bank of the Rhine, including the Brucheri, Tencteri, Sicambri and Usipetes. These remained in contact with the province of the Ubii, as is described by Tacitus concerning the Batavian revolt. It is thought that all of these relatively Romanized Germanic tribes may have contributed to the origins of the ripuarii in later centuries. The Ripuarian Franks are of much lesser prominence than their western cousins, the Salian Franks, who formed the Merovingian Frankish Empire beginning in the 5th century. The Ripuarian Franks lose their independence almost as soon as they enter the historical record, being subsumed in the Frankish core province of Austrasia. Apart from mention of some unknown riparii by Jordanes in Getica who fought as auxiliaries of Flavius Aetius in the Battle of Chalons, 451. The first mention of the ripuarii comes from Gregory of Tours, in Historia Francorum. He says that the Salian Frank Clovis, first king of all the Franks and first king to convert to Christianity, subjected the previously independent Ripuarians. Gregory says, after the death of Theodbald, Lothar took over the lands of the Ripuarian Franks. Evidently Theodbald had possessed them. He was the son of Theodebert, who was the son of Theuderic, a son of Clovis, as was Lothar. Clovis had left his kingdom to his 4 sons, Theuderic, Clauduma, Childebert and Lothar. Part of that inheritance was the country of Ripuarian Franks. The fact was attacked by Saxons, who entered it from their own country and laid waste as far as the city country around Cologne as being in their territory. After the death of Lothar, his 4 sons inherited the kingdom jointly. Sigebert received the share formerly Theodoric's and set up a capital at Reims. Presumably, the Ripuarians at that time occupied the country between Cologne and Reims, both banks of the Rhine, as they had been attacked from well north of the Rhine. Gregory of Tours, in researching material for the Historia Francorum, found the topic of Frankish kingship puzzling. In his time, the Franks had Roman-style kings. They were known to have had war leaders in earlier times, according to either Sulpicius Alexander or an otherwise unknown historian, Valentinus. Gregory uses the Latin titles Ducis and Regales explicitly with regard to Sunno and Marcuma, observing, concerning Sulpicius, when he says regales, or royal leaders, it is not clear if they were kings or if they merely exercised a kingly function. Regarding the pursuit of Sunno in Marcuma to Cologne in 393, Sulpicius is still calling them regales. Arbogast, nephew of the emperor, not only restored Cologne to the Romans but subdued all the rest of the Ripuarian Franks, while Marcuma watched from the hills. Gregory states that subsequently Sulpicius refers openly to the king of the Franks but does not state who the first one was, without naming the people as Ripuarian, but referring to and its how they voluntarily gave up their sovereignty to others. Gregory evidences a certain dualism, acts that he finds reprehensible when committed by other Franks, when practiced by Clovis to spread the authority of the Catholic Church. A saintly, the region of Cologne was under the rule of Sigobert the Lame, an old campaigner who had fought side by side with Clovis in the wars against the Alemanni. He was called the Lame because of a wound he had received at the Battle of Tolbiac, 496, the same year as Clovis' conversion to Catholicism. Clovis believed he had won by calling on the name of Christ and now had a mandate from God to Christianize all Neustria. This was a long process, not from resistance. In 509 he sent a messenger to Cloderic to state that if his father, Sigobert, were to die, he, Clovis, would ally himself to Cloderic. Whatever Clovis may have meant, as Sigobert keeping his territory from Cologne after a Cloderic and Clovis offering some of treasury as entire, Clovis sent messengers refusing just to see it, complying with their request, sink his arms into it so that they could see how deep it was. Cloderic was dispatched by the blow of an axe, unable to defend himself. Arriving in person, Clovis assembled the citizens of Cologne, denied the murders, saying, "It is not for me to shed the blood of one of my fellow kings, for that is a crime." He advised them to place themselves under his protection, after which he was shouted into office by a voice vote and raised up on their shields in a ceremony of installation. Thus the independent kingdom of the Ripuarian Franks was voted out of existence by the people at a single assembly in 509. Language. There are no direct attestations of the early Frankish language. Of some 1,400 Latin inscriptions in Roman Lower Germany, a little over 100 are from the rural lands of the Germanic Ubii, into whose lands the Ripuarii would move. The inscriptions are most frequent in the 3rd century. Most are from the major cities of Lower Germany. The right bank of the Rhine, where the Ripuarii originated, does not have such a wealth of Latin inscriptions. The High German consonant shift occurred south of an east-west zone called the Benrath line. The Rhine crosses it in the vicinity of Dusseldorf. The section of the Rhine including Cologne forms the so-called Rhenish Fan, where dialects are found which are intermediate between Low German and High German. Ripuarian laws. The Salians, following the custom of the Romans before them, were mainly reauthorizing laws already in use by the Ripuarians, so that the latter could retain their local constitution. Were mainly reauthorizing laws already in use by the Ripuarians, so that the latter could retain a local constitution.
shit. I done got put into. Alright, so yeah. So now we know what Riparian is. Right? Alright. It stresses their source somewhere beyond the Western Sea and the land of the Franks. Isaac Colonimus, the son of Nehemiah Theodorus of Riparian, was also known as Isaac the Rhodanite. Isaac the Rhodanite. Account of the Rhodanites stresses their source somewhere beyond the Western Sea and the land of the Franks. Okay. In the 5th century, Calalus was part of the revived Western Empire of King Arthur, a descendant of the Swan Knights. By the 8th century, due to admixture with the American Indians, the state had reverted to paganism. Nehemiah Theodorus led an expedition in 775 to return